I want to tell you something. When I look at that, I'm looking at the beginning of the end of the story.
Yes, sir.
The prodigal son, for instance. I wouldn't have had to read the whole story of the prodigal son. I couldn't have told you again the intricate details. But when he walked into his father's presence and said what he said, I could have told you this story's not going to end good. And our story is not going to be completed and written according to just one aspect of our lives. It's going to be written concerning the totality and the balance of body, soul, and spirit. Not just because you're a preacher, not just because you go to church, not just because your father is a deacon, not just because you have money and you can give it to the church, or not just because you have the ability to sing a song and can move the congregation and seems as though that God is helping you help other folks. I'm going to tell you, if there's not a balance in the triunity of all of it, there's going to be trouble. We've seen the beginning of the story. He has nothing in his hands, but we've seen the beginning of the end of the story already. He's just a young man, and I'm saying, no, Samson, please. We don't write this story that way. You can't be haphazard and flippant. In the other areas of your life, you can't just sling all this stuff and fling it away and then just trust that your little gift and your little ability and your little sermon and your little song and your little church membership and your little giving is going to carry the story all the way to the end. It isn't. All those phrases that say so much about him. He loved a woman. He told her all of his heart. I want her. Go get her for me. He's just already saying so much about him. Because you see, at times his hands are spirit-filled and strong and swift and superior, and he has these hands that have the ability to slay the enemy. But yet at other times he operates as if there is no God. There is no covenant. There is no Israel. There are no Nazarite vows. It seems like he has moved out of that spirit mode into that Samson gear, and he is self-operated. And can't you hear the alarms go off? He's touching the dead. He's loving the forbidden. He's playing games with his strength. He's taking his heritage for granted. He's overruling his parents. He's socializing with the enemy. You're going to destroy yourself. I can see it in the beginning of the story. We're at the beginning of the story.
Right.
And yet, we can see the end and how it's going to be written. We see the beginning of the story. He has nothing in his hands. We see the beginning of the end of the story. He's got honey in his hands. But then I want to go to chapter 15 and verse 15. This great feat, probably the more famous of his achievements, his strength and his ability. He has found a jawbone. And he puts forth that hand and took it. And he slew, and we marvel at this, 1,000 of them. Oh man, to have been there as a spectator and seen him take that jawbone and just knock him in the head. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And back up and go again. Man, he lays it on. But here's what I want to ask you. What does he do after that? what's the next battle? What's the next fight? He kills 1,000 of them, but how many of them are there? Huh? There's probably 1,000,000 of them. And Samson, we're glad you killed 1,000, but that ain't it, is it? We're writing a book here. Surely you ain't going to stop right here. Now, I don't know how old Samson is. I assume he's pretty young. He's not like the other judges who ruled 40 years. He only rules 20 years. Even if he's 50 years old, I'm not ready to end the story. A guy that can do all of this, man, let's go all the way to the end. Let's just knock them in the head until there ain't one left. Let's fight the devil till it's over. I'll tell you, 1,000's pretty good, but it ain't enough. Because that's not going to deliver Israel. You see, he's got nothing in his hands. We see the beginning of the story. He's got honey in his hands. We see the beginning of the end of the story already. He kills 1,000 Philistines, and now we see the end of the beginning of the story. I mean, he's killing 1,000 of them, but that's it. That's it. You mean it's over? The movie's stopping right here. You ever watched one? You said, that can't be the end. Wait a minute. When I saw you kids tear that lion apart, I just expected so much out of you. And I know you killed a few others and paid off your debts with them, and now you've killed 1,000 of them. But hey, this is just the first episode, right? No, this is the end of the beginning. He ain't that old probably, maybe, I don't know, 50 years. But you're just thinking, surely it's not going to stop right here. Yeah. It is the end of the beginning of the story already. Oh, he's good. He's gifted. Wow. But is that all we get? I'm going to tell you something. If it's not balanced, if God's not working in body, soul, and spirit, if He's not working in the outer ear, if it's just behind the pulpit, brother, that you're counting on, you're in trouble. And I'm going to tell you, you're going to come to the end of the beginning of the story. The other folks are going to say, man, I had great hopes for him. You mean he's not, you mean they quit? You mean where are they at now? You mean they're no longer coming to church? I mean, they sat on the front seat right there and where's everybody at? Where did they go? You mean that's it? We don't get another chapter? The story's over? Hey, I'm not just preaching to you. As I studied this, boy, God charged in my heart. So listen, buddy, it ain't just in your hands and in your preaching ability and fact that you can stand up before someone and things like that, and you can pull the wool. Any preacher that's preached any time knows that they've gotten in that pulpit cold-hearted, and maybe they've had bitterness in their heart or something against somebody else, or even seen some things or done some things, and still did pretty good. But you live in that realm long enough, and the end is going to come sooner than what you thought.
Amen.
Because in spite of that power, in spite of those other things, those other outskirts of your life are going to be even stronger than what's in your hands. Your hands may be able to do that out there, but those other things will reach on the inside of you and drag you down. Or the Philistines won't be the big deal. It's going to be those hands being used without your head and your heart. And there's no unison there. Let us cry out to God, oh Lord, may you inhabit my very thoughts. May my mind be set upon heavenly things. And may my heart be as your heart. And then I can have it all together in my service for you. He's good. I mean, I don't care what all the other stuff that's involved in his life. We can sit around and talk all day about the other women and other stuff like that, but we still have to say, yeah, he was good. He was good. But he didn't have no head. He didn't have no heart. I was watching a sporting event the other day, or here a while back, and they interviewed a guy that had done a play that he was by nature one-handed, right-handed, and he did the play, let's say, with his left hand, and it just looked so real and so good. So they interviewed him, and they said, "Man, how did you do that? You made it look so good, and yet you're right-handed." Oh, he said, I can work with either hand. He said, I'm amphibious. Yeah, I'm really amphibious. Yeah, you ain't too bright either. I'm going to tell you, I believe Samson would have told you he was amphibious. I can kill him with my right hand, I can kill him with my left hand, but I ain't got a lot of sense when it comes to women and lions and foxes and wine and all that other stuff. But I'm amphibious. It scares me. I don't know. Does it scare you, brothers?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It does. It scares me. You see, he's got nothing in his hands. See, that's the beginning of the story. It's going to be great. He's got honey in his hands. We're already at the beginning of the end of the story. And then he kills 1,000 Philistines. We're at the end of the beginning of the story. It's over. But then go to chapter number 16 and verse number 29. Notice what it said. And Samson took hold of 2 middle pillars upon which the house stood, and on which it was borne up. The one with the right hand, and the other with the left hand. Can I suggest to you this is the end of the story? That's all there is. There is no more. Samson has used his hands, but nothing else seems to be in unison and cooperation with what God has done in his hands. You can see that in his attitude and relationships with everybody else, that it's all about his hands. You see, he's not interested in the very purposes of God. Even when he's in contention with these Philistines, he takes it as a personal thing. He said, yeah, that's what you played with my heifer. I'm mad. Yes. And then, of course, he slays a few of them, but he said, I ain't done for what you've done to me. And then he does the thing with the foxes. And even down to the end, he prays. Did you notice what his prayer was? He said in verse 30, and Samson said, let me die with the Philistines. And he bowed himself with all of his might. And the house fell upon the lords and upon the people that were therein. But look in verse 28. And Samson called unto the Lord and said, O Lord God, remember me, I pray thee, and strengthen me, I pray thee. Only this once, O God, that I may be at once avenged of the Philistines for my eyes. Yes. He said, it's about my wife, it's about my riddle. And by the way, he's trying to compete with the enemy and in an intelligent way, giving these riddles. I'm going to tell you something. He's brawn, but he ain't brain. He don't need to be dealing with these people on that level. They're going to outwit him and outsmart him, as the world always will. You and I, we're not in competition with them, as I said, I believe, yesterday. He's not really caring about the people of God. You know how I know that is because after he lets loose those foxes, They come up to Judah to find him, and his very own people, 3,000 of them, come up to him, and they say to him, Samson, you know that we're being ruled by these Philistines, and you've made them mad, and we've come because they want you. He said, well, promise that you won't kill me. And they said, okay, and they just turned him over. They realized he didn't really care anything about them. That's the end. Now, when we come down to the end of the story, we realize 4 or 5 things. When it's just one portion of your life that you're trying to give or give to God and you've left everything else out, here's how the story is. He lives a life without stability. Man, you never know what he's going to do, where he's going to go, what he's going to be into. That's right. He lives a life without unity. Yes, he kills 1,000 Philistines. He's not like Gideon. He doesn't lead Israel in to fight with him and they go to battle. He's not like David that when he kills the giant, then all of Israel goes into battle. He has no unity about him all. He can't draw God's people in to help him any at all. Because it's about him. He has no stability. He has no unity. He has no victory. He has no victory. And as a result of that, he has no real legacy. Now, we've all talked about his hands. We've all talked about his hands. I get this. We've all talked about his hands, but which one of us? Or what Sunday school teacher has taken their class in, or what parent has taken their son over and said, now, son, I'm going to read you the story of a man that I want you to be just exactly like him. Now, you might have a Sammy or a Sam named after Samuel, but I'm going to chance it to say there's no first-name boys in here named Samson. But wait a minute, he had strong hands. He could do anything with his hands. But what about his heart? What about his head? He has no legacy, no victory, no stability, no unity. Let me show how it here. Chapter number 13, and I close with this in verse number 5. I'm just trying to speak to all of our hearts about this matter of body, soul, and spirit. And I don't know that it's possible we can have them all just right all the time, but we need to be aware that they need to be. I can feel myself being pulled in this direction, being pulled in that direction, and sometimes getting out of kilter and things of that nature. But my heart always has to tell me, listen, your preaching ain't enough. The story's not going to end right. The epitaph is not going to be what it needs to be to the glory of God if you're just trusting in your gift and your ability.
Amen. Yes, sir.
I guess verse 5 of chapter 13 says it all. If you'll read on down, we'll not read the whole verse. The Bible said, and he shall begin to deliver. He never got it done. He shall begin. And if he had a stone over his grave, I guess that would have been the appropriate epitaph. He began. He began. But honey, I'm not interested in the beginning of the story. All the woos and wows over how you start and how great you are and how refined you are and how intelligent you are and your gifts and all of that other stuff. Well, I'm glad. I rejoice in that. But I'm going to tell you, the thing that really interests me about my own life, I'm thinking about how it's going to end. I don't want my children walking by my casket with shame and disgrace because of how it ended, because of the women or because of the uncleanness and the dead bodies and all of that other stuff. It burdens my heart. Oh God, I want to finish. Paul said, I've fought a good fight. I've finished. Now, salvation can't do anything but help you. Walking with the Lord can't do anything but help you, strengthen you. Fellowship with God's people can't do anything but help you. Studying and reading this book can't do anything but help you. Praying can't do anything but help you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But religion will kill you. And I'm going to tell you, the greatest enemy sitting in this church right now, the greatest enemies, not that book, not that prayer, not our salvation, not our walk with God, but this little religious film that will cover us up and let us become secretive and somehow operate in the religious system and think we're okay. We're going to be okay all the way down to the end. Samson had a cancer operating inside of him of rebellion. And God did some mighty things through him, but He did it in spite of him. And I hate to sound so harsh. I really, in my heart, I've got love for this old boy, but I just don't. I'm sad when the story ends, when the film stops and the book is closed. I'm saying, oh Lord, could that be me? He's got storied hands, but I'll tell you, when it's all over with, the story doesn't end well. The story doesn't end well. My wife's father, an old timer, he's alive. He was born in 1911, so 103 years old. But he told me the story. He used to play ball back in the 30s. And said there's an old boy come through the county up there. They'd play in the counties. Each county would play each county. Said this guy was on a different level. Said you could tell he was pro material. He could throw a ball. He could pitch. And as a result of that, of course, word got out. And the pros came and scouted him out. And they called him up. And they put him on, I've forgotten the team. I'll have to find out. But at one of the teams, even they gave him a contract as a pitcher. About 6 months later, he said, I got to noticing he was back with us. And I wondered what it was, and said they sent word back. And they said that old boy has got $1 million arm, but a 10-cent brain. And they won't work. Well, I'm going to tell you something. You can have a lot of religious stuff and you can do a lot of religious things. And it may look like $1 million. But honey, if those other things ain't like what they ought to be, you got a 10-cent thing working there for you. What was it Paul said? Lest what I preach unto others, I myself should be a castaway. Samson, please don't. What are you doing? Are you getting that, honey? Are you going, surely you're not going to go down there where the vineyards are. You know you'll end up drinking. And hey, by the way, how can you cut a man's hair and him not wake up? Now, I'm conjecturing. I don't know. You reckon he might have been drinking a little bit? I don't think they had drugs in, but you reckon he's nipping them in the bottle? I mean, I don't know how in the world that a man who had locks of hair that had never been cut and the Philistines could come in while he's in a stupor and cut his hair. Now, I don't have no proof he drank anything, but by the rest of the things that he got involved in, if I was a betting man, I'd tell you he did. Oh, that's all right. I got right in the middle. I didn't touch the ribs. I just got the honey out in the middle. Oh, no, I know she's not an Israelite, but, you know, I ain't seen anybody up here that I really like, and man, I just she ain't a bad girl. I'm pretty sure I've been talking to her about my Nazarite vows and stuff. She ain't again it. And I'm pretty sure that, we can iron that out. And I move her up here, and I'm done talking to Mom and Dad, and, that's a story about itself. But they're always like that. They want me to be Nazarite all the time. And they made me mad. That's why I handled them foxes. I know that's against the Nazarite vow too, but sometimes you just get out of hand. And that other girl down there at Gaza, I don't know, I liked her. She was nice. There wasn't no harm come of it. They just tricked me a few times, but man, that didn't gonna hurt me none. And Delilah, you should have seen her. Wow. Man, I like to go down there, just put my head in her lap and let her talk to me. She bothered me at times. She's nagged a lot. Nagging. Oh, where did you get your strength? How come you're so strong? She'd feel my muscles and everything. But, I ain't going to hurt nothing. I've done stuff like that before. It ain't no problem. I pulled a joke on her. I told her, I said, just tie a new rope around me and you'll get me. I knew it wouldn't work. I busted them things like they wasn't nothing. I come right out of there and went right in the pulpit. And they thought, man, he's great. Had me a little drink on the side. And I said, it ain't it. It's right here. That's where it's at. It's right here. And finally, she kept on, and I said, well, since we're out here, I might as well tell you, I love you so much, I'm going to give you all my secrets. You just tie my hair up in knots, and that'll do the job. He said, I knew that wouldn't work. Oh, I just come out of there, and they run like rats. Look at that. You know how many places I preach? You know how many times I preach?
Yes, sir.
You know how many I pastor? You ever heard me preach? Story ain't over. And finally it came down to the end. Somebody called it the winding, blinding, grinding. There's another one there, power of sin. Finally, he laid his head over in that lap, probably stone drunk. He said, listen, I've played around with lines and eaten honey and had other girls and fooled around the grapevines and told stories.